So down there is Divna and Boris's home and guest house now. And I'm off on my date. Okay, let me introduce the plan. Right there, dead center, where it says 2 is Divna's and Boris's place, and I've just walked on the red road up to this point right here above the A in restaurant and the N. And now what I'm going to do is, oh, and incidentally, it was at this point that I left my bag when I hiked to the left up this area here, which I ironically will cross there later this morning. But anyway, getting back here, now I'm going to go down and to the left to the restaurant where I had dinner last night, an excellent dinner, and then proceed to the lower right to this first monastery, number 4. Which is what I was looking for and couldn't find any signs until well into my afternoon of walking about the village. Then I will continue north until I intersect to the road I was on before, which I will show you in a moment when I first came here. And I'll go up to this monastery. I'll double back, cross over the wooden bridge I videoed yesterday, and then try and follow around the rest of that to these other places. Now she tells me the trail is not very distinct, so I may get lost. Surprise. And then I'll come back down here and work my way back to where I have started. A man saw me looking at the map and wondering if he could help me out. And he's apparently a woodcutter, has a saw and some kind of perhaps an axe or a hoe, I'm not sure which. Anyway, when I first got here, I attached and left my bag there and then walked up to the left where that gentleman went. And in an attempt to find the monastery, which we're now going to go to by turning to the right. And we'll go up to a building up here further, which you can just see where that car is, and turn left right there and go up that way to that monastery. Ultimately, we will up that road quite a little ways, perhaps farther than I went yesterday, I guess. And then we'll wrap around this hill here. Exactly what that implies, I'm not sure. And attempt to come back around. Dinner last night, and here's where we'll turn. And it's only looking through there that you see it says SV Petka. That's the only clue that I would have seen walking around here, and it's facing the wrong way. Now, with all truthfulness, if I'd have gone down this road, which I actually did, on the way back I would have seen the sign, and I may have, but it seems to suggest that it could be taken either way. In retrospect, I went up this main road here, but it could also refer to the correct road. And of course, once I'd started up this trail, I would have had confirmation that I was going in the right direction. This small path is still used. Of course, you can see that. This is the second of 2 roads or paths going off to the right. I can only assume that they serve individual fields and that I'm still on the main path. Here are a couple of what look like water lines indicating a pretty substantial source of high mountain stream water, probably, or better still, spring water. This may be an arrow indicating I'm going the right way. I don't know. This may or may not be the monastery. Okay, there's a cross. Success. Perhaps St. George and the Dragon. Some very old frescoes. This is probably Jesus. Notice that portions have fallen away from that alcove and then been repainted. Area for people to eat in, because I think this still does function for rooms and so forth. The room is probably above and below. So that's a lovely little monastery. And if I was a backpacker, it'd be good because you can get the access. But I go not drag my suitcase up here. If you knew where you were going and you were driving, you could drive right to it. Now we'll continue down this road, which I'm pretty confident intersects the road I first walked up yesterday in search of the monastery, but without any directions. 8:11 now as I leave the monastery, so I must have started about 7:45 after breakfast at 7. There are all kinds of lizards around here, but yesterday walking up the road I saw a brilliant green lizard streak across the road and into the grass. I think this is Macedonian for Sveti Petka. And when you get to the Y here, and this is the first big Y coming from the monastery, you turn to the right. The remains of a culvert going underneath this dirt road for an earlier irrigation, which looks like it still gets used. Now, it's just after this collection of commercial buildings. Notice the two orange roofs on the left, gray roofs at the back, some more orange, lighter orange, reddish buildings to the right. It's after that on this road from the village that you will make your right turn coming up here. And just up from, I think, the hill, which is right there from the main road, is on this rock on the left side, is just almost barely covered up by the moss, another blue with a white stripe on top. Okay, this is the intersection. Those buildings I just showed on the right side, can't see them behind the bushes, and then this is the intersection going up the hill, and the rock that you want to look for is right up there on the left in those trees, I think. If I had gone just a quarter of a mile farther, I would have found this intersection, which I believe those signs on that tree will indicate is Sveti Ilya, that monastery I'm trying to go to. The old wood bridge replaced by culverts in order to get the big trucks up to where they're doing the hydroelectric plant. Okay, so there we are. So now I'll just continue along here and find that. Don't know what those signs mean, except there's some spot listed probably on the list down at the town center that tells the locals or anyone who speaks Macedonian what's up. And here someone, perhaps the monastery, has graciously placed a little picnic table underneath the tree. Just a short way up from that bench on the left is a road, not well used but used, and I'm factoring together two things that tell me this may be where Sveti Ilya is. One, Devna said that you could see it from down below somewhere, and number two, that blue glazed with a white paint strip on it. So the second of our monasteries for this morning. A rather simple front. I'm not sure, probably some painting or iconography was in there in that square hole. And that says something, but I can't read it. Probably when this was active, and that would be an interesting story to know a little bit more about. These would have been properly tended, well-tended fields, and maybe monks would have sat out on these logs. I saw this in the tree and thought it might be a curious fungus growth, but in fact it's a bouquet of dried, bleached out flowers. But the colors are very similar to what's in the color of the algae and moss. Here access apparently is trusted to those who would have the initiative to get this far. So we'll enter in. I can hear bees hovering around here. Remember, this is an iconostase, a very rough and simple one for this small monastery, designed to keep we, the people, away from the inner sanctum of where the priest communes and the elders of the church commune more directly with God. And I won't physically go in there, but just kind of take a look. It's very simple. This was just where pre-public ceremonies would take place. But the iconostase, as you know, doesn't reach the ceiling. And the purpose of that was so that the people out here, we normal mortals, could at least hear what the priests were saying. And here people have left bundles of goods to be sold or given to the poor, as well as offerings in the way of flowers and probably money, and most of all, candles, which are sold over there. And here a ladder, perhaps for working on the roof. These must be seats. Ah, yes, rather stern seats, if you will. I took off my backpack and sat in this seat. And what it does is you have to sit way at the back, but when you do so, this piece forces you to lean forward in a humble manner, I suspect. I'm on the tractor to insecticide the apples. And here you can see there's trust. People are put their donations, as I will, in this little bottle and leave it here for whoever takes care of this church. Again, behind me on this road is Sveti Ilya. Beyond me to the right is the town, the village, and up to the left is Sveti Petka. Partial view of that complex of buildings we looked at before, and that was the right hand side of buildings, and that is a complete set of buildings. Okay, I'm now on the way back into town on that road where the double arrows are, and I'm now at the intersection where I have circled it. And that's where I'll turn right to begin the trek around the mountain, if you will. The road coming from Sveti Petka, where I then turned right and went up to Sveti Ilya, looks on the map just a short distance, but it's probably quarter to a half a mile. Now, if you want, that loop we just made takes about an hour and a half to 2 hours to go from the hostel at 2, or the guest house at 2, past the restaurant, up to Petka, and then down this road, then turn right and up to Ilya, and then back down to this point. So that makes a good afternoon hike. I'll call it number 1. Number 2 hike is where we're going to turn right now off this road, where the double arrows are, and go where I've circled. And that wraps around the mountain. How far I'll get, I don't really know. That's a much longer hike, and I'll call that number 2. If you do number 1 in the afternoon the day before you do number 2 will be an hour and a half to 2 hours shorter.